So our first thread is titled Husband Called Me a Cow. I'm 36 weeks and 4 days pregnant. She says, I'm lying in bed crying my eyes out. I've tried my absolute best to eat healthy during pregnancy. These last few days, I've been hungrier than usual. I was out with a friend and we had ice creams. I posted this on Instagram. I didn't check my Instagram again, and just before bed, saw he'd replied to my story, quote, "Eat less, you're looking like a cow already." I'm 36 weeks and 4 days pregnant. This is the first time he's commented on my weight, and I've only just read this message as he's snoring away next to me. I'm beyond upset. He's already been completely useless, has no empathy or understanding of my needs as a pregnant woman, doesn't help with anything, expects me to do all chores as usual, and now this. I'm really, really upset. So, honestly, my knee-jerk response to this was to laugh just a little bit, because there's something a little bit amusing about the statement, "Eat less, you're looking like a cow already." But I say this as someone who appreciates a much darker sense of humor, I guess, with my husband as well. And so if my husband were to say something like this, and I don't think that it's totally out of character that he would, to be honest, he would, number one, say it to my face, and he would definitely say it as a joke. And it would be intended to make at least himself laugh, if not also to make me laugh. Probably he wouldn't care so much about making me laugh in the moment. He would find it funny, and therefore he would say it. And chances are, if all is going well, I would probably find it funny too. That said, this is unfortunately not the case here. What I find really strange about the statement, honestly, is that it came through social media and that he posted it on Instagram. Like, I'm just trying to imagine what was going through his head when he saw the story and then he was like, oh my God, she's eating a lot of ice cream. Again, trying to imagine some particular context in which this could either be funny to him or could, I don't know, maybe he's trying to be helpful in some kind of way by saying, hey, you should watch your weight because it's going up a little bit too fast. But under all circumstances, it's really not a helpful comment, and it's really not a great way to do it. And I feel a little bit bad for her that she's sitting there crying over it. It sounds to me like there's a lot more going on in this marriage that is not very healthy and that's not very good for either party. When she says he's already been completely useless, he has no empathy or understanding of my needs as a pregnant woman, he doesn't help with anything, and he expects me to do all chores as usual. And now this. And if she's 37 weeks pregnant and she's, that's pretty damn late in your pregnancy. She's coming up to giving birth. She's maybe a couple of weeks out from giving birth at that point. I don't think I was doing anything in the house. Honestly, when I was 37 weeks pregnant, I was pretty much just crashing on the couch and maybe going outside and sunbathing and hang out by the pool, just doing things for myself without really engaging with the rest of the house all that much. So perhaps here there's two angles where this is maybe that you could maybe look at this. On the one hand, maybe she's just a really terrible person. Maybe she's super lazy. Maybe she's eaten her way into a ton of weight gain throughout her pregnancy, and her husband kind of hates it and he has a terrible way of communicating with her. The other side, which is probably a little bit more likely, is that he doesn't quite register or understand what goes on during pregnancy. Maybe he doesn't appreciate her as a wife. There's clearly some level of frustration that's happening between the two of them, and maybe some built up resentment, and maybe it comes out in these kinds of really, really awful comments that are not helpful for anyone, and that are a bit mean, and that are a bit cruel, and that make women feel even worse about themselves, when usually pregnancy is a time that a lot of women already struggle with. So yes, even if I find the statement and the sentiment a little bit amusing, it's cruel. If I were OP, I don't know how I would react, to be honest, because I really don't think that this is how my husband would interact with me if he meant it in a mean way. If it is something that, and it really is a case when she says, I'm really, really upset. So she took it personally and she took it as a direct insult. In that case, I would struggle to be just laying there in bed next to him while he snores away. And probably he would have a really rough morning when we woke up, because we'd have to sit down and be like, okay, that was absolutely not acceptable, and I refuse to have you talk to me in that way. And I don't know why you would do that, and that really hurt my feelings, and that was just cruel and mean and awful. And I don't know why you would want to make me feel so bad about my pregnancy. So yeah, I don't know that, like, this is one of those interactions that either it means there is some terrible miscommunication that they both need to work on, or their relationship is kind of already down in the dump, and I don't know how you can recover from here. 99% of the comments are people freaking out and being very, very angry and very much on OP's side here, which I totally understand. A lot of people say things like, wow, tell him goodbye. Oh my God, I'd be waking his ass up and putting him in his damn place. What a D. No offense, but what kind of man are you with that would even make a comment like that? I'm so sorry you're going through that. The only weight you need to worry about losing is the entire weight of that man. Quite a lot of people tell her to just break up with him on the spot, which I think could be a bit of an overreaction if that kind of behavior or that kind of comment is not typical. And it wouldn't be typical because she's so upset by it. So it's, and she says this is the first time that he's commented on her weight. So, you know, I would probably assume, most likely if you're being very charitable, that he just maybe thought he was making a funny offhand comment, and it was obviously not like that. And especially doing it on social media means that you kind of have no chance to take it that way. And then the people who kind of take it really, really seriously will say things along the lines of, think of the example that he sets for how your children should treat their spouse later on, or the example that he's setting for how your child should be treated in a relationship. I agree with the previous poster, throw the whole man out. You don't deserve that. And then people go into quite a lot of depth about how the interactions that he has with you will also reflect on what your kids think is acceptable and so on, which is fair enough. I do think that there is a difference here between him saying this type of statement straight to her face and between saying it in this kind of way. I don't know to what extent he interacts like this in person, and if he does interact like this in person, it's a problem. Also, if he thinks it's more acceptable to say statements like this via social media than in person, that's also not really a good way of communicating, and probably a lesson that he needs to learn sooner rather than later. So in general, kind of a crappy situation. I'm sorry, OP. I'm sorry I find it a little bit funny, but that's me.